Hello and welcome in a new video. In this video I will talk about how to maximize dopamine levels, okay? Okay, so why is dopamine important? Because if you want to achieve a high state of well-being, you need dopamine to be high, okay? If you have a low dopamine, you can actually feel also depressed, okay? If you have also very low serotonin, you can feel even worse, okay? So dopamine is crucial not only for depression, but also for energy and motivation and libido, okay? So these are basically the roles of dopamine. Now, how is dopamine produced? Basically, it is a neurotransmitter, and this is like the terminal part of the neuron. This is the axon, and here is basically the cell, the neuron that connects to the other neuron. Okay. And basically, here there are vesicles with dopamine. Dopamine is secreted and binds to receptors here, okay? Once it binds to the receptors, then there is the actions that you feel, okay? Also, there is some dopamine left here after it binds, and what happens is that if you inhibit the uptake of this dopamine back to the cell, you basically increase the dopamine here. There is more dopamine available to binding. So my goal today is to show you how you can increase, one, the dopamine that binds to the receptor, and two, to inhibit the uptake of this dopamine up into the presynaptic cell, okay? Take three supplements. One, L-phenylalanine. This amino acid is basically one of the precursors to the production of dopamine, okay? It's very important because actually when you take this supplement, you can actually feel the dopamine, because basically it's the precursor to L-dopa, and then L-dopa converts to dopamine, okay? So this is a very important precursor that can actually make you feel the effects of dopamine. I aim to take around 750 to 1,500 milligrams a day, okay? This is the dosage that I would recommend. Second, Catuaba. This is basically a plant that is considered an aphrodisiac, but what it can actually do, and it's very interesting, is that, as I showed you earlier, there is the cell, the presynaptic cell, and the postsynaptic cell, okay? And I told you that dopamine needs to bind to the receptor in order to feel the effects. But what happens is that once it binds, the dopamine is here in the space between the two cells, okay? And Catuaba can actually increase the amount of dopamine present here that is available to bind, okay? By doing this, by inhibiting the reuptake of this dopamine back to the cell, it actually allows the presence of more dopamine. So this way you will increase dopamine levels, okay? So Catuaba definitely a good plant. Now I take the powder, and I usually take like 3 grams, but the dosage is not very specific. So I would say that you should inform for yourself for the dosage, because it can vary. I think that maybe like 1 to 2 grams should be fine, but it depends, okay? So see for yourself for the dosage, but what I take of powder is usually 2 to 3 grams, okay? Last one, Mucuna pruriens. This is a very, very important plant. Basically, I think it's the most important, guys, because it actually contains dopa, okay? This is basically the amino acid that then is converted into dopamine, okay? What happens is that there are also medications that basically contain this, levodopa also called, and basically this is the precursor. So this plant contains in different amounts L-dopa. Now, there are different standardized extracts of mucuna pruriens that contain L-dopa, but I take the raw powder, usually it contains around 5 to 7%. I don't want a crazy amount of L-Dopa, so I aim to consume around 5 grams of mucuna. Okay? Of course, the quantity can vary. Maybe I take on some days more catuaba, maybe 5 grams of catuaba, and maybe I take more mucuna pruriens, but on average, the ideal, I think, is like 5 grams of mucuna and maybe 2 to 3 grams of catuaba, okay? Maybe on some days I take more, maybe on other days I take less, it depends. And this will increase your dopamine levels. So by doing these 3 things, you will boost your dopamine levels and you will feel more energetic, more motivated, and you will have also a higher libido.